Hey, so I just wanted to do a little video on an update on my carnivore ketovore journey. If you're just watching me for the first time, my name's Tiffany Brown and I am a certified health and life coach. Welcome to my channel. I focus on ancestral nutrition, movement, and lifestyle. I'm also on my own personal healing journey. So I've been sharing a bit of that on my channel as well. And today I want to share kind of my latest evolution on the carnivore diet. I've been mostly carnivore, a little bit of plants here and there, very minimal, more like ketovore, but I don't eat plants on a daily basis. I'm sticking mostly to meat, eggs, and ghee, as well as some organs, beef trimmings, things like that. I don't need to get into all the details in this video on what I'm eating, although I should do, I have some videos of like the fats that I've been eating and things like that. I should do a video of like more what I'm eating on a daily basis. But since about mid-February, I've been really committed to upping my fat, trying to get into a deeper level of ketosis and kind of see where that takes me. So it's been a bit of a wild ride. Spoiler alert, I have gained weight, about 13 pounds since the end of January, and I have some InBody scans that I wanted to share with you and just kind of talk about what my experience has been, you know, the good, the bad, and where I want to be moving forward, what I want to be doing. Ultimately, this has been a really great experiment and I do not regret it. And, you know, I'll get into just sort of the weight gain and the way that I'm feeling about that, how I'm handling body image, my perspective, the way I'm choosing to look at what my body is going through and the state that it's in, you know, and just fighting sort of my millennial, I guess I'm an Xennial. I'm 82, born in 82. I'm going to be 44 in October. And just kind of fighting that, you know, just the body image and, you know, all of the things that we have thrown at us now through social media, but growing up, just fashion, like clothing catalogs and advertisements and, you know, women that were, and young women, you know, like Alicia Silverstone and like Drew Barrymore in their younger years, just being torn apart by the media for being fat when they were like size 4 or something, you know. I mean, we all just, you know, if you know, you know, and I'm sure a lot of women can connect with this. And I personally have not really dealt with being overweight, is not something that's really been a struggle for me. And so I've always kind of been used to my body being a certain size. And as I've been going on this journey, I have put on some body fat in this time, but there's been these ups and downs that I want to kind of get into, because fasting earlier in my carnivore, in the earlier months of carnivore prior to starting this, definitely has played, you know, a part in me wanting to experiment a bit. But yeah, so I'll get into just sort of the mental component of weight gain, loving my body better and myself and treating myself well and being, you know, on my team and a cheerleader for my growth and my healing. So let's get into it. Brief backstory. In my initial months of carnivore, like the first 6 weeks, I gained about 7 pounds. I started in the low 120s, which was really probably underweight. But I, you know, prior to starting carnivore, I've been weightlifting for years. Very, you know, healthy diet, you know, whole foods based. But I was vegan for 20 years. Vegan for 15, plant-based for a full 20. So like no meat. And then I started, you know, my health declined I was a drinker as well, and so that definitely played a part in my health. But I changed, really started evolving, ditched the alcohol about 6 years ago. I've had the occasional drink here and there, but have slowly evolved, and over time began eating meat again. And so I was in what I felt was a pretty healthy place. I was dealing with gut dysbiosis, and all of my healing that's taken place has been for gut dysbiosis, SIBO, Candida, acid reflux, which is just all kind of tied into the gut issues, anxiety, depression, and just like mood issues, irritability, things like that, around my cycle, spotting before my period, that all kind of getting a little wonky. So, my sleep, definitely like perimenopause symptoms creeping in. I used to get debilitating panic attacks. I had chronic fatigue, joint pain, muscle pain. It just, and the list is even longer than that. Other skin issues, rosacea I've dealt with for years. So there was a lot that I was really wanting to heal. And in the start of Carnivore, actually, I gained 7 pounds. I was just kind of like, my appetite really had like opened up. I was like just eating a ton, and in the fat adaptation phase, eating a lot of fat. And so then once I started getting a little more energy, I mean, that's relative because I do deal with chronic fatigue. I wanted to start experimenting with fasting. And so I'm trying to just get all this out without being like too all over the place. But end of October, I got a Keto Mojo, started, wanting to measure my ketones and things, and see my blood sugar. And I wasn't getting into ketosis. Like it was, and I was like, my energy isn't quite, all these people are talking about like energy and whatever. And I was just like not feeling that. And I knew, I dealt with chronic fatigue for so long anyway. I was still drinking a lot of caffeine in the beginning of Carnivore, which I am no longer drinking caffeine, decaf coffee only for me. But I'll get to that as I go in through the months. But I was like, okay, I'm not eating any carbs. Like I should, be getting into ketosis. So I started fasting around mid-November, and, I would get good ketones while I was fasting, but then as soon as I was back to eating, I was not, making, it's like I would see like 2.3, 2.4, or 0 point, just point, like 0.2, 0.3, 0.4. And then occasionally I would get to like a 0.5 and be like in ketosis, but I wasn't like feeling awesome. So I, with starting to fast, I was getting the ketones up, but they would go right back down when I was eating. And my hair was falling out. Like my hair was falling out early into Carnivore, which I know is normal, but then it just never really stopped. And at that point, I was eating about 150 grams of protein a day, in which my weight was in the 120s, so it was more than 1 pound or 1 gram per pound of body weight. And I was eating about the same in fat too. So I was kind of hitting that 1-to-1, maybe even going a little over 150 with my fats. But I was also, this is a side note, putting like a half a scoop of a quit protein powder in my coffee. And so a couple of things. I do think what I'm realizing now as I've kind of evolved is the protein powder, even though I was doing like butter with it, like my fear, I was like, oh, well, I'm just going to do like just as much fat, with my butter with a half a scoop of protein powder, so it like balances out and it's all good. But I really think that processed protein was negatively impacting my blood sugar, and preventing my body from really being in ketosis. So that was a factor. And I also think caffeine was influencing that as well. So those are two things that I realized sort of after the fact. But I was doing okay, and still, I was lifting, kind of maintaining my my goal was to at least be maintaining my muscle, like knowing that, you know, as I was fasting, like I wasn't really expecting to build a ton of muscle in that time. So I was maintaining my muscle, but I just, you know, my sleep wasn't great. And I just wasn't healing, you know. I had made some progress, but like I was, you know, I was still dealing with rosacea. I had this like dry patch on the back of my scalp that wasn't budging at all. And I thought, you know, that would be something that Carnivore could help with. My fatigue, you know, it was like slowly getting better, but I was still really needing to be reliant on caffeine to get through the day. And I just, and I, but I was liking what I was seeing in the mirror. So this is where I'm going to get to my InBody scans, because I was starting to get that like relief, you know, just like fit looking body. I was starting to see like my abs and things like that, because I was losing weight with the fasting and maintaining my muscle mass. I mean, it was as best as I could tell, because I hadn't been doing InBody scans up until that point. But my hair was still falling out, and I wasn't seeing the healing I wanted to see. And my perimenopause symptoms, anxiety, you know, just like I in the earlier months of Carnivore, like I wasn't getting hangry quite so much. I was started to see less irritability before my period. My periods were getting better, like my spotting had stopped. So I was starting to see improvements. And for the first month of attempting some fasting, but by that I mean, like I wasn't doing regular intermittent fasting, but like once a week I was, because I work out early in the morning. So I'm breaking a fast really early. I don't want to work out fasted. But I would do like a 24-hour fast once a week, and, you know, do like a small meal. So more like a fast mimicking day, where I would have my meal be maybe, you know, 20 to 30 grams of protein, and same with fat, you know, maybe if we're talking calories around 500. Like I was doing that kind of a thing once a week. Maybe I would like try a full 36-hour once a week. And then I did try some like a 3-day fast. And so that I'm saying all that between like mid-November and like mid-February, like I was playing around with those things. So not like regular, I'm not talking about just like daily intermittent fasting here when I say that. So I started seeing some of those things creep back in with the perimenopause symptoms. And that's when I was like, okay, this is not okay. Like, this is not why I'm doing this. And I'm not willing to sacrifice my peace, especially when some of like the irritability and things before my period, as well as just like that anxiety. I would get kind of I wasn't having full blown anxiety, like panic attacks, which I used to have. But it was just kind of these rushes, like this like sympathetic nervous system sort of like rush that would like kind of pulse every like few minutes. Like it was a little disturbing to say the least. And it wouldn't happen on a daily basis and all day, but it would just like happen periodically, where I would just like every few minutes get these rushes of like just anxiety, I guess. Like it's a fight or flight kind of feeling. I can't really fully explain it. But anyway, not cool. So I was like, I need to up my fat. So at that point, like I said, I was doing about a 1-to-1 ratio. So not like low fat by any means. But I right around mid-February, I started upping my fat. Like I wasn't really thinking much about lowering the protein at first. But let me just get to my January. So I did this InBody scan on January 23rd, and then I didn't really start making changes until to late third week of February, something like that. But this InBody scan on the 23rd of January, this kind of just like confirmed the ways that I was feeling, basically. So I weighed 123.5. And I'm 5'6", by the way. My fat-free mass was 105.4, and my total body water was 77.2 pounds. My skeletal muscle mass was 58.6, so I have a decent amount of muscle mass, and my body fat percentage was 14.7, BMI 19.9. So this also kind of gives you an estimate of like what you need to gain or lose to be optimal. And this was suggesting that my body fat mass specifically needed to go up by 9.7 pounds. Okay. So I was definitely underweight, low body fat. And so I knew like this was just too low for me. And so I've yet to really discover exactly what can still be healthy for me. But 14.7, definitely too low. So I knew I needed to be upping my fat. So really like what I started doing was just adding more of the rendered fat. Like I never really had, maybe in like the first 6 weeks or whatever, I had an adjustment of like needing to, ease into the rendered fat, but I wasn't having like a ton of issues with it. So I just started pouring more of the rendered fat over my food. And then I just started looking into more of like lowering my protein. So figuring out I was starting to feel better with the fat in the first week, but then I was like measuring my ketones and I still wasn't seeing, like they were higher, but I wanted to see higher ketones, especially first thing in the morning. And my blood sugar was still kind of all over the place, like not super consistent in the morning. Sometimes, just like upper 80s, low 90s, which from what I had researched, I was really wanting to get my blood sugar consistently in kind of like upper 70s, low 80s, and then start getting my ketones into like 1.5 to 2, or maybe even higher than that, just to see how I would feel. So, I was upping my fat, but I didn't want to just be eating. It was like a lot of food, like quite a bit more food. But I wanted to see higher ketones, and, the other option would then be lowering my protein. So I started to slowly lower, I went immediately down to just 1 gram per pound of body weight, and then kind of slowly lowered from there. And so over those weeks, I kind of came to the conclusion that like 0.7 grams per pound of ideal body weight. So if I were to say, 130 was maybe my ideal body weight, that, that would leave me around 91 in doing the math, grams of protein per day. But I've also heard, through like with like keto, some people even say for women going as low as 60, which I just could not wrap my head around going that low. And I do strength train. I don't want to lose, I'm 40, almost 44. I don't want to lose any muscle. So I did try. I had some days where I tried it just to see what it would feel like, and it was just not it was just too much. Like then it's like I needed more fat to feel satiated, and it just became too much of like just globby fat on my body. I was like, I realized, so another thing that I realized, so when I first started to up my fat, I was pouring the rendered fat, and then I was upping my butter, and my rosacea flared up, and I was like, is this, and I had been eating butter all along, but not as much butter. And so I was realizing too, in those months, that like I was dealing with histamine intolerance. And so then I realized, oh, maybe butter's part of the problem here. I was upping my butter and it was flaring up my rosacea. So I switched to ghee, and that my rosacea went way down, and it was much better. And it's just more appetizing, like tastier to me than like tallow. I've been doing beef fat trimmings as well, and that's good. I like those. Like, I cook them up in the air fryer and they're super tasty. So that kind of turned into like more of my fat sources once I realized butter sadly was a problem. Bacon's also been a problem. So the histamine discovery was really helpful because, you know, there's some people in this space that talk about like bedside butter, or like bedtime butter, or whatever. And that can be great for some people. But if you're having a histamine response to it, like that's, your body's going to be in a stress state in the night. And so I was trying some of the bedtime butter thing, especially as I was trying to up my fat, and my sleep was an issue, and it was not helpful because my body was reacting to it. So that was an issue with my morning ketones as well. And then other foods, like I had, you know, bacon's so tasty, and it made like every meal so much more enjoyable. And so initially I was doing a lot of bacon in the early months, and realized that that was an issue for me as well. So dropping that, and also I can do some pasture-raised pork, but chicken and pork just aren't really great for me either. They make me feel really tired most of the time. Pork rinds too, I had to drop because I was having histamine reactions to that. So all of these things I think really kind of helped with upping my ketones. But yeah, so it kind of started to, I kind of got into my groove. I slowly declined, you know, my use of caffeine. That was a months long process. Just kind of slowly adding in decaf. For a long time, I've been doing a mold-free coffee, so I was able to find decaf mold-free coffee. The mold in the coffee was making me feel awful, and I realized that in the first month of Carnivore that I need to be switching my coffee. So I just kind of slowly just added decaf, decreased the caffeinated when I make it in a French press. But that was like a 2 months long process probably in this time. So it really wasn't until April probably that I completely was off of coffee. But it was also like, as I was figuring out the histamine thing, I think that was helping my energy. And then just adjusting, like starting to see more ketones and being in ketosis more consistently. So then I was able to it just had this positive feedback loop of like less caffeine, more ketones, better energy, less need for caffeine. It was just like this really, it took, you know, a couple months, but it was really great the way that it worked out. So, in that time, in those initial months, like I will, starting mid-February on this particular part of the journey, my energy started getting so much better. I was feeling, you know, stronger in the gym. Initially, like I couldn't fathom not having caffeine. You know, I wake up to go to the gym at 4:30 in the morning, and I was like, how am I going to go and lift heavy weights at 4:30 or like 5 in the morning without caffeine? Like I was like totally addicted in that way. Like I was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do if I, you know, don't have my caffeine? You know, and I just like took it super slow, but like I started having readings in that 1.5, 1.8, 1.9, and just my blood sugar was so much steadier that like I was waking up like awake and ready. And so now I can easily go to the gym with no caffeine, and I just do a little bit. I have my decaf coffee and I put a little bit of like ghee in there to give me some energy, and I do my electrolytes in the morning, and I feel great and super strong. And I've been lowering my protein. So I'm probably between 80 and 100 grams of protein a day. And at least 200 grams of fat every day. So with that said, I'm going to get into my sort of current InBody scan, which was actually in the beginning of July. So this is actually on the 4th of July that I went in that morning. I do this at my gym. So I, did this scan at the beginning of July. I've already said that. And I chose to wait this long because I noticed, like my weight, it took a couple weeks, but my weight started going up. And I knew it was going up, and I was like, it's okay. This is like my body's just adjusting. It's fine. And it was going, so basically it like went up fairly quickly to me. It was, 1 pound a week, 1 pound every 5 days, something like that. And then it was like, it lessened to, a pound a week, to a pound every 10, 15 days, whatever. And then it just kind of like leveled off. So that's, rough estimates, but that was sort of like it got more and more gradual as the weeks went on. And then I was probably at, in weighing myself, a consistent weight for at least like two weeks or so before then I decided like, okay, this is really slowed enough. I want to check in and see where I'm at. I feel like I've sort of leveled off, because in that time, like really in the last, from the time of this scan over those like few 3-4 weeks, as my weight gain had slowed, was also when I was really starting to feel less ravenously hungry. So I'll say like, as I started upping my fat and kind of allowing myself to eat, because I have been doing this fasting for a couple months, my body was like, okay, we're eating now. And so I'm still eating 3 meals a day. I like the way it feels. I'm a very active person. In addition to being a health coach, I'm also a massage therapist. I walk at least 10,000 steps a day. I'm lifting weights most days out of the week. So I like to eat throughout the day. Like there's so many people in this carnivore space that are like, oh, 2 meals or OMAD. It's like, how? Like I tried in my earlier months going to 2 meals a day, and it was just like, it wasn't happening for me. And partially because I like to eat in the morning, but I also want to eat dinner with my family. So I was having to wait way too long to eat my second meal, and the timing wasn't great. But now it's like, I really just do like eating 3 times a day. So I'm still eating 3 times a day. But I just like couldn't get enough of it. And like, if my body didn't feel full, I like had to eat again. So I was like, I'm just going to really, from the very beginning, I really wanted to like just listen to my body. And I got a little too excited about the fasting thing, and I wasn't tuning in as well as I could. And so I was like, you know what, I'm just going to let my body tell me. I'm going to eat whatever I want to eat. And trying to like, keep an eye on, protein being more moderate, fat high. But I couldn't feel satiated. Like I felt like, I think my leptin was a little bit, I was dealing with some leptin resistance maybe. And I was undernourished. So like once I gave my body that permission, it was like, it's go time. And I just had to eat. Some people might consider this priming. That's kind of a word in the space. But that went on from mid-February into this summer, beginning of June, maybe end of May. I started feeling like my body just could like take a breath. And I got to know better what my hunger and fullness cues were. So especially fullness, because it's very different with fat. Like with protein, I realized, for any of you volume eaters out there, going really high fat and moderate protein can be difficult because your volume is not as high eating this way. And so with protein, it's like you're eating a lot of muscle meat. It's a higher volume of food. So that was a bit of an adjustment, because with that higher volume, you're then more likely to feel that like expanded stomach feeling. And I realized that with fat, it's like, it doesn't feel like that. And so in the last couple months, I've finally gotten what it is. Like, I think, Dr. Anthony Chafee talks about like just eating until the food stops tasting good. And I like never understood that. I was like, at what point does it stop tasting good? I just don't get it. And now I feel that way. Like I will, especially by dinner, because it's like I really kind of front load my food. And like by the time I get to dinner, it's a smaller meal. And I just like, and then I get that feeling like, ugh, like where it's just, I'm just done and it's just not good anymore. And so that's interesting. And that's really only been just in the last couple months that I've gotten there. So that's all I felt relevant to explain that part, which then I was able to correlate that then with like my weight gain kind of beginning to plateau. And I don't feel like I was eating any less food necessarily. I'm like loosely tracking, but it seems like it's a similar amount of food, but I just like actually feel done when I'm done eating, which I hadn't necessarily felt before. So yeah, so all of that said, my InBody scan on the 4th of July, my weight came in at 136.6. So that's up from 123.5. Which is about 13-pound weight gain. But my fat-free mass is up to 108.5 from 105.4. And my total body water was up 79.6 from 77.2. So yes, there's body fat mass in there. Obviously, that's more. So my body fat percentage came in at 20.5%, up from 14.7. So definitely more body fat mass. I guess my last one, oh, that's muscle fat specifically. Yeah, so, there's definitely fat gain, but then there's also, so when I kind of do the math of like my lean body mass, and taking my muscle mass gain into consideration, so that also was increased. So I'm at 60.4 pounds of muscle from 58.6. So that's almost 2 pounds of muscle. So if I'm subtracting that from the difference of 105 to 108, that's about 1 pound of lean mass gain that's not muscle. So, it's only a pound, but, that means that's bone or organs or whatever tissue that I'm gaining, which means, health and healing to me. So that's a positive. I'm, at a 20.5% body fat now. And that's, healthy. Like that's a healthy place to be. My visceral fat, I will say, in January was a level 3, which anything under 10 is considered great. So 3 is very low. And, and that's not a bad number to see. My visceral fat level in July was 5. So it went up by 2, but is still well under 10. Something to just kind of keep an eye on as I'm experimenting, but I just feel like that probably just to a degree comes with the territory with fat gain, to have a little bit more visceral fat. So that is what it is, and I will keep an eye on it. But yeah, so what I'm getting out of this, how I'm feeling about it, like I said, I know that I was clearly, based on my first scan, was underweight. So I'm at a, healthier weight now. And I'm gaining muscle. So one thing to note is that I gained almost 2 pounds of muscle from end of January to beginning of July with less protein. So this is really encouraging, just showing, and I was actually like slightly lowered my volume. So I did change up just really the timing of my workout, like what I was doing when, and the math left me at like a slightly lower volume by the week, every week. So I'm very impressed that I gained, a couple pounds of muscle by, lowering my volume slightly and lowering my protein. So I think this really speaks to ketosis being a muscle sparing state. And, the fact that I had more energy, taking away the caffeine, having more energy and feeling better in my workouts as I adjusted to, having more ketones and not having the caffeine. So that feels really good to me. The, increased lean body mass outside of muscle mass is also encouraging. 2 pounds of this added weight is also water. So, that's like a daily thing. It's like maybe I had just, I'd had a little more sodium the day before. It's like, who knows why I had more water. I mean, I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing. Anyway, just up by 2 pounds. But, so of that 13 pounds, 3, including the muscle and then the additional lean mass, that's 3 pounds already of lean mass plus 2 pounds of water. So, so it's not all fat. But let me get to just kind of the way that I feel right now. Anxiety's gone, I'm back to that, just zen, running on ketones, super chill state. 2 days ago, I was just, casual chat with my husband about whatever. And I mentioned, oh yeah, I'm supposed to get my period in a few days. He's like, oh, really? And I was like, yeah. And he's mentioned to me before, subtly, like he knows when I'm getting my period, right? And he just like had no idea because I'm just like super chill. So that was cool. And I've actually, had conversations with my daughter where she's mentioned, like, she notices that I'm calmer. I'm probably like just framing myself as like such a crazy, awful person when I'm not in ketosis, and I don't think I am, but I have my moments. And, yeah. And so she's noticed, my higher level of patience and calm, my periods, I'm not spotting. It's good, maybe TMI, but I'm sharing it, especially if these are ladies watching, that my, the way that my discharge is throughout my, throughout my cycle is back to the way it was in like my 20s and 30s. Like I forgot about, the way that your discharge, like when you ovulate and the discharge versus like right before your period, like all that, like that I feel like was sort of non-existent for a time to where I just kind of forgot about it. And then in the last couple cycles, I'm like, oh, there that is. That's interesting. I forgot about that. So there's that, a bit more of a libido. And I can honestly say, like, I will not have more children, but I've had these like, I think kind of around my ovulation, I'm like, oh, maybe I could have another baby. And like, what? No, like because it's not going to happen. But we're done with that era. But it's just interesting that I'm even having those thoughts. Like, it's just, so I'm noticing these things. And what else? Oh, chronic fatigue is just like gone. Like now, part of it is ketosis and part of it is also, like I have sustained energy throughout the entire day. I dread the what's for dinner question and like the bed bath time routine. Like I dread that part of the day less. I have a much higher tolerance for it. If you know, you know, how that part of the day goes, but it's like so much easier. And yeah, what else? I know I'm forgetting things. My rosacea's gotten a lot better. It's not perfect. I'm still like honing in on, you know, on things with that, and my gut is still healing, and I'm just gonna like be patient with that. Also this patch, like I was dealing with it. I literally have had it since I had my daughter. And then those first months of carnivore, it wasn't budging. And now in the last couple months, it's like almost completely cleared up. I don't know if it's psoriasis or what. Never got it diagnosed, but it was not fun. It was not pleasant. I did not like it. It was, you know, fairly well hidden, but anyway, so yeah, I had my daughter 7 years ago. I've had it for 7 years, and then it cleared up. So I feel like my body is definitely doing more healing in this state. So I want to keep it up. Like I said, I test first thing in the morning. I'm going to continue testing. But I'm feeling really good where I'm at. I've settled into my protein to fat ratio. And I'm just going to ride this out and keep listening to my body. As far as like hunger and fullness goes, and just sort of see what continues to evolve. So if you haven't, you know, if you've been enjoying this so far, please like this video so it can get to more people that, you know, that are interested and want to hear it. And also leave a comment. Let me know if anything's been interesting to you, if any of it's resonated, if you have experiences, if you've been playing around with your ratios. You know, let me know. And as far as the fat gain goes, I just, you know, I'm in a place in life now. First of all, I do think like I was undernourished, and my body needed nourishment. And with that comes, you know, calories, potentially more energy than my body needs. And I don't know, you know, and especially with like the fasting, I don't know how much, you know, my metabolism had downregulated. And I do think that I potentially have just been under eating for a long time, not necessarily knowing, because I didn't necessarily like restrict myself, and I was never much of a calorie counter or anything like that. And I ate when I was hungry. But I think because before, when I was eating more plants and the way that disrupted my digestion, it was like the bloating and like whatever level of discomfort created this illusion of fullness. But I wasn't, and then eating so much plant food, and then only just recently bringing me in over the last couple of years, like I just think I had a long history of being undernourished because of my way of eating and being vegan. So I'm needing to play catch up. And so and with that is coming some fat gain. But I think, you know, I'll be interested to see, you know, it does provide a basal metabolic rate on these InBody scans. My previous one actually does, oh yeah, it was 1,402 calories. And then it bumped up to 1,433 calories. So, you know, I don't know that that's very much, but it's showing that, you know, I have a higher basal metabolic rate now. We'll see like how that goes in the future. But I mean, I'm just trusting that it's what my body has needed. And I'm choosing to love myself. You know, I have, just like anybody, even though I've never dealt with like weight issues per se, it's like I've struggled with body image issues. You know, being a teenager, looking through like the Dahlia's catalog, you know, that was what that was called. You know, and looking at the young girls, just being small. And then of course the older, you know, women, supermodels and actresses, and these expectations. And then certainly now on social media, I have a lot of like health influencers in my feed, these women that, you know, have six packs and they're super fit and cut. And it's like, I mean, I was starting to kind of get there with this fasting on carnivore. And I was starting to like what I saw in the mirror, and I felt awful. And so I just have to wonder some of these women that I see. And if you're one of those women and you feel like 1,000,000,000% and you're not on HRTs, not that, you know, if you, I'm not saying either way if that's right or wrong, but like, you know, that's extra support to provide, you know, to provide your body with for you to be able to get, you know, the 6-pack super fit body as you're getting into perimenopause. So, you know, going through the ride of perimenopause without HRTs and trying to build muscle and be super fit is a challenge. So, anyway, if you are somebody who is super fit, not on HRTs in perimenopause with a 6-pack, and you feel like 1,000,000,000% and awesome all the time with a ton of energy, with no issues with your symptoms and whatever, like, let me know. But yeah, I'm just like realizing like what is a normal, it's just getting me to think a lot about like what is like a normal healthy body? Like, where is it? What is it? You know, and I'm learning like maybe this is what it is for me. And I am going to choose to love it. And if it changes over time, while I'm also feeling really well, and as I'm healing, hopefully feeling even better as I go, then awesome. But if this is my version of a healthy body, then I am gonna love it. And I will say that my body now, okay, so I'm right now 130, this says 136. I've been showing up, you know, I'm pre-period right now. So my scale's been close to like 137, 138, but I'm still more or less kind of, this is like sticking around. And the last time I was this weight was right after I had my baby. And I had, you know, dropped, obviously, had initial weight after delivering a baby. But then, you know, kind of slowly went down. I think I kind of plateaued around like 130, but I was like skinny fat, and I had a flat butt and weight around the middle and like no muscle tone in my arms or legs. You know, it was like, I technically wasn't like overweight, but it was not a good weight. And now I'm, you know, 6, 7, 8 pounds heavier than that. I have a lot of muscle, a lot more muscle on my body. But like where the fat is going as I'm gaining it on this way of eating is different. And I am noticing, and it's not all from having built more muscle in the last 5 months, but I am noticing that more of my fat is going into my butt. Like I was always worried that I was gonna like have a pancake butt, like a flat butt when I got old. And because I was like pretty flat to begin with. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna be one of those ladies with like a flat butt. And yeah, so I never had a butt. And now I have like a booty. And that I'm so, and my boobs. So I'm gonna, you know, I've heard this from other people, like the butter boob and butter butt thing. And like, I'm vouching for that because on this sort of journey I've been on, you know, in those initial months of being on carnivore, my boobs were like still, you know, kind of deflated after like having breastfed. And like that wasn't changing in those initial months on carnivore. And like as I've upped my fat, obviously I'm like gaining fat in other areas of my body as well. But like I'm gaining it in a way in my boobs and my butt that I never have. And I always gained fat around the middle. And like skinny, you know, skinny legs and fat around the middle. And I'm having some fat gained around the middle, but it's like, because it's evenly distributed throughout my body, like I'm getting a little bit more on my arms, a little bit more on, you know, and a little more on my legs. My legs are, you know, more, I have good muscle going on my legs as well. So my body shape is just so different than it ever has been. And just curvier. So I'm just choosing to embrace that. So even though I'm heavier than I've ever been, it's like, you know, some of my pants aren't fitting, and I'm just like, yeah, because girls got a booty now, you know, like I'm not fitting into my pants because I've got a butt, you know. And so I'm just like embracing that. I'm looking at myself and just being like, you have a beautiful, healthy, strong body. And the body that I currently have right now is allowing me to really heal, and I'm like, okay, this is the amount of fat my body needs to feel safe and finally get into a healing state, which is why I tried carnivore in the first place. So I am just super grateful for that, and it's the way that I'm choosing to look at it, and just feeling like it's okay that I'm taking up a little more space. I'm feeling a little more bulky, and I think like for now I have, I'm building muscle, and then I have kind of like a fat layer on top of it, and so I'm finding myself, if I catch myself in a moment of feeling a little self-conscious about that, like I'm just telling myself like it's okay to take up this space. It is healthy to take up this space and to be in this body. And so I'm just choosing gratitude, and I hope this helps. If somebody who's watching this is feeling that way, and maybe you're on carnivore and you're gaining, and that's why you clicked on this video and you're like freaking out. I know I was never overweight to start. Okay, so I get that. If you are overweight looking to lose weight on carnivore and you're gaining and you're freaking out, like I get maybe if my experience isn't completely resonating with you. But I think what does apply is, there's a really good chance that however you were eating before, even if you were overeating, you were undernourished. And there's a process, like you're actually putting food in your body that your body knows exactly what to do with, and your hormones are shifting, and all of that takes time. Getting into ketosis takes time. One suggestion that I would give anyone is to get like a Keto Mojo or one of those like blood glucose and ketone readers, because you need to know that carnivore does not equal getting into ketosis. So I would encourage you to play around with your macros, get that fat up. Don't be afraid of it. I think what happens, people start to gain weight when they add the fat because they're just adding the fat. And if your protein's too high, it will mess with your blood sugar. And it's that blood sugar that is contributing to the fat gain, not like the fat itself. So consider getting to that kind of range, looking to get into that range of like a low, upper 70s, low 80s blood sugar in the morning, with those higher ketones getting up more like 1.5 and above, and see how that goes for you. But this is a process, and your body knows what to do. And so I'm choosing to trust my body in this time, and be patient, and enjoy the food that I get to eat. So, no restriction. And that's, lesson learned for me. I was interested in the fasting because of the health benefits. I really wasn't like, oh, I'm gaining weight, I've got to lose the weight. Like that really wasn't where it was coming from. It was more like I was thinking that it would help me with my healing. And I think that can potentially work in the future, or, for people that are already nourished, and for a body that's already getting what it needs and that isn't already stressed out. So for me, I don't know that fasting will ever be for me. But I'm not opposed to it in the future, but I'm in my nourishing era. So I'm not in a deprivation era anymore. So I would just encourage you to consider that, and nourish yourself. So that's about all I have. I'm at about an hour almost now. If you've stuck around, thank you so much. I appreciate you taking the time to kind of hear where I'm at. Like this, if you found it helpful, leave a comment and say hi. Let me know, how things are going for you, on your journey, whether it's carnivore or keto. I have been incorporating a little bit of plants here and there. I'm dabbling, but I just, I feel great on carnivore too. So let me know how you're doing, how you're feeling, what you're healing. I want to know more about, the miracles that people are experiencing. on this way of eating. And subscribe to my channel, check it out if you want to follow along with my journey. And as I said, I'm also a health and life coach, and I'm posting periodically more like educational content. And I want to be posting, this has kind of been a slow build for my channel. So I want to be posting more meditations. I focus a lot on, mindset and identity work, behavioral change, things like that. So you'll be expecting to see more of that on my channel as well. So I'd love to see you over there. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next video.